Dracula, Frankenstein and Sweeney Todd. They all have one thing in common, and that, my friends, is they are based loosely on facts. And today's story is no different. Today, my friends, we are here in Radcliffe to cover the strange and bizarre tale of Fair Ellen. Today's story begins here at the parish of St Mary's here in Radcliffe, and just in front of us is St Mary's itself. And the story of Fair Ellen takes place, or took place, just over there at Radcliffe Tower. And Radcliffe Tower was built sometime around 1403, so not too long in the aftermath of the Norman conquest. Over the centuries, the manor would evolve and it would become heavily fortified during the reign of Henry IV. But like with everything, time is unforgiving, and eventually the manor itself will become abandoned, which would then lead to it being ransacked. The stones would have been taken and reused elsewhere, and it would fall into ruin, into disrepair. And like I said, all that remains today are the ruins of one of the towers. I think it was around about the 1970s, sometime in that period. The tower that used to stand proud and was a landmark of this area here in Radcliffe, it was surrounded by gravel pits, and eventually it would become a somewhat desolate landfill site. But going back to the 1920s, and I miss the decay, a glimmer of hope would emerge, albeit briefly. And whilst Radcliffe Tower would be listed and it had sparked an ongoing effort to conserve what remained of the historic monument, it would still end up being somewhat run down. Like we said, gravel pits would evolve around it. People would still take pieces of brick and stone away for whatever reason, we can only guess. But thankfully now, as you'll shortly see, it is standing firm, and it is a reminder, a good reminder of past times. Today, though it may be mere fragments, the tower stands as a testament to its former glory, one could say. And Radcliffe Tower, it endures a symbol of resilience against, obviously, the ravages of time. This tower, over the centuries, will have seen many historical events come and go. Obviously, such as the First and Second World War, such as, and I won't say the word, but recent viruses. It will have seen and gone through a hell of a lot over the last 300 to 400 years. But as you see now, it is nothing but a mere relic of what once used to be a grand building. So what has Radcliffe Tower got to do with the story of intrigue, betrayal and murder? Well, the story goes that Lord Thomas, who once lived here with his beloved daughter Ellen, he would be a doting father. He would spend all his days and nights alongside his daughter. But this would wind up or rub up his wife, Ellen's stepmother, the wrong way. And she would become resentful of the attention that Ellen was receiving from her own father. And the stepmother herself would hatch an evil plan to do away with Ellen at the next available opportunity. So in other words, when Sir Thomas himself had left Radcliffe Tower, and I think he'd gone on a hunt on the day of Ellen's tragic murder. Now, as you'll probably see from some of the footage, we're unable to get inside the actual tower. It has been cordoned off. Many of the entrances have been backfilled and there's a big gate on the opposite side. I can understand why, because obviously it's a listed monument. I think it's grade 1 listed. There's a lot of history in this one piece of ruin, if you will. So I can understand why people are being stopped from going inside. You only have to pop your head in and you'll see litter that's been thrown in. So that gives you an example of why these places are protected and obviously bricked off, and to stop people getting in. Because some people just don't respect it. They don't respect the history. And it's a shame, but I can understand why. Now, the story of Ellen and Sir Thomas gets even darker. When Sir Thomas himself had left, like I said, to go on a hunt, Ellen had gone into a field, presumably nearby, somewhere around here, and it could well have been towards the River Irwell, which is just in that direction. And apparently she was embroidering on the day of her death. And her evil stepmother, she'd concocted this plan with one of the cooks, one of the chefs in the actual manor. She shouted over to Ellen, "Ellen, can you make your way back to the scullery, to the kitchen? We need you back inside." Now Ellen, unwise and unaware as to what had been planned, she dutifully did as she was asked. She went back to the kitchen. Now it was in the kitchen where a terrible murder would take place. The stepmother had made the chef take Ellen's life by slitting her throat. He would then go on to dismember Ellen and cut her up into small pieces. Prior to doing that, a scullery boy came into the kitchen and got wind of what was about to happen, and he begged the stepmother and the chef or the cook to stop what they were doing and to take his life instead and spare the life of Ellen, because he knew that Sir Thomas would be absolutely destroyed at finding out that his beloved daughter Ellen had been killed. The stepmother, however, refused this request, and she said that if he spoke out and told Sir Thomas of what was about to happen, or what would have happened by then, he would also end up going or being killed in the same way, the same fate as what Ellen was about to succumb to. with the scullery boy obviously unable to stop the events that was about to take place. He left the scene. He didn't want to be part of it. Meanwhile, the cook took a knife to Ellen's throat and he slit the throat of Ellen. He would then dismember Ellen and chop her into small pieces if the story is to be believed. These pieces would then be placed in 2 pies. From all accounts, Sir Thomas had a love of pies. So the flesh, the body parts, will be minced down and placed into these pies, these freshly made pies, until Sir Thomas arrived back home from his hunt. We do have sketches and images dating back, I think, to the 1700s and more certainly into the 18 and 1900s, and we'll put over this segment now. But it does show Radcliffe Tower in its former glory, and you will see this backfield archway in the photos or in the sketches, but you'll see that the manor house goes that way and then across, and there is kind of ruins, not ruins, but foundations of where the rest of the building once went, and it was all along that direction. So it was a grand structure, and like the story says, there used to be 2 large towers, and all that remains now is this one, or the ruins of this one. Now on the actual walls is a plaque. We'll just have a quick look at what it says now. And it does say that this tower is protected as a monument of national importance under the Ancient Monuments Acts 1913 to 1953, Ministry of Public Buildings and Works. So this is why I understand the reason behind them, obviously preventing people from getting inside, as you see with this large gate here. But you can just see by popping your head in, I mean, it's disgusting. You've got bottles on the floor. You've got dog walkers throwing bags of dog waste in here. You know, black bags there, green bags, dog waste, bottles, more rubbish around the corner. This is why I understand the reason for these metal gates and to prevent people getting in, but still, people are so disrespectful. They don't realise the importance and the history that they've got on the doorsteps. And I'm kind of going into a bit of a rant with this story, but still, it does annoy me, it does wind me up. This has stood on this land since the 1400s, you know, and it's a historical monument that, like I said at the start, it's been through world wars, it's been through viruses and plagues and other historical times, and yet people are treating it like a rubbish bin. It's disgusting, it really is disgusting. When Sir Thomas arrived back here at the manor, the first thing he did was inquire about his daughter's whereabouts, where his daughter Ellen was. Nobody said anything at the time, and it was only after Sir Thomas had finished eating the pies that had just been made that day that the evil stepmother herself would tell the tale of what had occurred during the day. And she would gleefully tell and inform Sir Thomas that he had eaten his own daughter. Now obviously this would be enough to push anybody over the edge, and Sir Thomas flew into an almighty rage. He sent for the sheriff, who promptly arrived and obviously arrested the chef as well as the stepmother. And the story goes that the stepmother herself, she will be burned at the stake for her deceptiveness and the cruelty that she inflicted on Ellen. As for the master chef, or the cook, who took Ellen's life, well, he was burned in boiling oil. Now the story of Fair Ellen of Radcliffe, it's one of those where there's no evidence to suggest that this actually took place. It's a ballad that was passed and has been passed down through the generations, and the ballad itself is quite long, so I'm not going to read it all out here, what I will do, I will put a link down to a website which shows you the actual ballad itself, as well as more information about the tower. But the question I've got to put to you guys and you people watching is, with any stories like this, the ballads, the folklores, the myths, the legends, usually there is some form of truth, an element of truth in these stories. But what I'd like to know is, from anybody watching this video who are more historically minded than what I am, where does the ballad of Fair Ellen come from? Where does it originate? The names that we've mentioned in this story, Sir Thomas and that of Ellen, we can't find anywhere. We know there was a William de Radcliffe. We know there was a Isabella at some point who lived here, but we don't know where Ellen and Sir Thomas derives from. There's no factual records, as far as I'm aware, of an Ellen ever residing here. So as the name Isabella being changed to Ellen to suit the ballad, I don't know. Again, if anybody knows more about the ballad and where it originates, comment down below. Now, whilst the story of Fair Ellen of Radcliffe, it most certainly is fictitious. There is no historical records of a Sir Thomas or a lady by the name of Ellen ever living at Radcliffe Tower or the manor. We do have to ask the question, where did it originate? Why is Radcliffe Tower and this story believed? Now, I will admit, when I first read this story, it intrigued me, and it fits cap in hand with the Days of Horror channel. We cover the mysterious, we cover the true crimes, we cover the tragedies that have occurred way back in our past. And when I first read this story, I'll be honest with you, I actually believed it as well. I thought, oh, this is a good one. This has got everything that I love in a story. And it was only when I read it further that I came to realise, obviously, it is just based on a ballad. Now, over the years, many people have come to believe that this story is indeed true. Like I said, I fell for it. If anybody's watched this video knows more about the ballad, where it originated from, how it originated, and why it's become to be believed, comment down below and tell us your thoughts. Because, like I said, it's an intriguing story nevertheless, whether or not you believe it or you don't. From all accounts, inside the Church of St Mary's, there is, or there was, a white, I don't know if it was a plaque or it was a headstone, but when this tragedy unfolded, it was said that a white plaque with the names of Sir Thomas and that of Ellen it was made and it was placed somewhere outside in these grounds. But over the years, locals used to come down and chisel away at it, and they took small fragments away, and apparently it was to bring them good luck. Now again, I think this is just another element of the story that is not factual in any way. I don't think there is a white plaque from all accounts inside the church, so we're not going to go in, and it is a Sunday morning anyway and there's people inside. But that's just another little added story or extra that's been woven into the tale of Fair Ellen. Right, we've just spotted, or I should say Vicky has just spotted a deer running towards them red bushes just over there. Don't know where it's gone since. Maybe if we have a walk round that way. Oh, it's there now, it's there. Don't think GoPro's going to pick it up. I'll zoom in later, but
it's gone again. There's normally more than one, isn't there?
Yeah.
Oh, there.
It's looking right at us now. So the deer is just running now, just in the back. I don't know if you can see it. You can see its little bum. Just there. It's just disappeared, just gone now. But like Vicky's just said, you normally see more than one, don't you? Now the reason why I'm kind of going off track and making my way into these woods is because the story of Fair Ellen says that she would often leave the manor, which is to our right, just past the fence in there, and she would make her way into fields, woodland, where she would sit in the spring or summer weather embroidering. And it was on the day of her death she was doing just that. Now, them fields may well have been just here, and we are just going on the basis that the story of Fair Ellen itself is indeed true. It is factual. Let's just argue and say it's factual. So these are the fields, these are the spaces, the areas in which Ellen herself would have once roamed and walked around. And this is where she would have been seen embroidering by the stepmother on the day of her death. And it does open up into some form of a pathway. So yeah, so these could quite conceivably be the area in where she was actually embroidering that afternoon when her father, Sir Thomas, had gone out on a hunt. Now, the story of Fair Ellen doesn't stop there with her murder and her death. A lot of people over the years, over the centuries, since her death, say they've seen a black dog roaming around these neck of the woods, literally these neck of the woods. But this black dog is supposed to be the bearer of bad news, an omen of sorts. Now, the thing with this story is, it's never seen by more than one person at a time. So, for instance, today, myself and Vicky are here in Radcliffe, telling you guys the story of Fair Ellen. The chances of us seeing this black dog are 0, according to reports. However, if I was on my own, or Vicky was on her own, there's a good chance this black dog may be seen by myself or Vicky. So again, take out of that what you will. Are you superstitious? Are you a believer in stories such as that? Comment down below and tell me your thoughts. Perhaps, amidst the whisper of the night, the spirits of Lord Thomas and Fair Ellen, they may still roam, and their story etched into the very stones of Radcliffe Tower, it's a reminder of the fragility of innocence and the enduring power of truth. Maybe we'll never know if the story of Fair Ellen is true. Chances are it is just that, a story, a ballad. But it's an enduring one, and it seems to have lasted the ages, hundreds of years, and it's been retold and retold in many formats. And who knows, perhaps one day we will find the truth. So that is the end of the strange and bizarre story of Fair Ellen of Radcliffe. Have you heard this tale? Have you read about the tale? And have you read the actual ballad itself? Again, I'll put links down below to take you to a website which you can read the ballad for yourself. I will put throughout the video, or you will have seen throughout the video, maybe some quotes or some wording from that ballad. But if you have heard the story, like I said, let us know. If you haven't, tell us what your thoughts are. Where do these ballads originate from? Is there some element of truth in them? If so, where did this one originate? Because like I said, I can't find anywhere which will factually say that there was an Ellen and a Sir Thomas that once lived here at Radcliffe Tower. Now, in the meantime, we hope you did enjoy this video. Again, it's something a little different. It's a story that, like I said, I believed was real when I first read it, and then the deeper I looked into it, the more I realised obviously it was just a story. It was a made-up story that has been passed down through the years, and people have been suckered into believing it, such as myself. Now, in the meantime, guys, we want to take care, look after yourselves. Myself and Vicky will be back with more tales from our dark but at times glorious past. But as you always say, guys, stay safe and stay curious.